place wire to wire.
Okay, at 6:30, Julie, will you call the roll, please?
Kara Caston.
Here.
Katie Courtney.
Here.
Ken Dawson.
Here.
Chris Espinoza.
Here.
April Finan.
Here.
Don Renner.
Here.
And Michael Risky.
Here.
Great, thank you.
All right, having a quorum, let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hey, good morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Hank, I'm going to turn it over to you for student recognition.
And I will turn it over to the principals.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's nice to see all of you on a wonderful, beautiful summer day. Thank you all for being here tonight. We have a number of recognitions this evening for a lot of our spring sports and activities. Once again, both of our schools have had many students have these amazing accomplishments in both their activities and athletics. And so we're just happy to be able to recognize those with you tonight. So first up, I'd like to call up Andrew Edelman, our head boys track and field coach, to recognize our boys track and field team. Andrew.
Good evening, everybody. So I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge our boys track and field team this year as a whole, over 160 guys. So even though we're talking about just a few accomplishments tonight, it's really kind of a reflection of all of those guys. But specifically at the state meet, which was 2 weeks ago at this point, we had a lot of success. We placed sixth place in the state for the third year in a row, which is matches our highest finish now for the third year in a row. Including in that our 4x8 team of Grant Schroeder, Phil Supiel, John Courtney, and Will Surratt repeated as 4x8 state champions. So they successfully defended their title. And in route to doing that, they also set the school record. But in addition, they set the all-time state meet record, which was previously held by Carl Sandburg High School. So a huge accomplishment for those guys. And then all of those guys, or three of those four guys, also doubled back for other all-state honors. Grant Schroeder placed fifth in the 800-meter run. Will Surratt placed fifth in the 1,600-meter run. Our 4x4 of Emmanuel Murphy, Phil Supiel, Grant Schroeder, and Will Surratt placed seventh in the 4x4. And Emmanuel Murphy also placed seventh in the 400-meter dash. So it was a super successful season. Very proud of all the work they've put in. A few of these guys will also travel out to Portland, Oregon this week to try to defend their Nike Outdoor National title at University of Oregon on Saturday. So congratulations. Very proud of you.
Come on back, Coach.
First place, you receive a proclamation.
First place, we have a couple of proclamations here from our partners at the Village. So one from the Village of Woodridge in recognition of all of the success that makes today. Downers Grove North High School Boys Track and Field Team Day.
Great.
And then we have recognitions for each of our gentlemen that crushed the state record. Recognizing today in Downers Grove is Downers Grove North High School 4x800 meter relay team day.
Thank you. I think we've got a lot of track and field and cross-country days in Downers Grove, so this is very exciting. Next up, I'd like to call up our girls track and field coach, Matt Maletich, to talk about those accomplishments.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. The first one I would like to recognize is our 4x200 meter relay. They set our school record. There are two of them who are here today. So we got Charlotte and Blake. I'm going to have them stand up so you can see them. So Charlotte and Blake were two of the legs of the 4x200 meter relay, along with Allie Leach and Victoria Ingram, who could not be here today. But they ran just tremendous races towards the end of the season here, setting our school record by quite a large margin. And we look forward to having Charlotte and Blake in the back next year because they're just sophomores. Way to go, boys. We also have Ava Gilly here. So Ava Gilly, she can stand up as well. Ava Gilly finished 6th place in the 800 meter run this year. She also, did we ever determine how many school records you're a part of? Is it something like 6 or something? Ava's all over the record boards. She's had a tremendous career, so it's fun to highlight her here at the end with that. But she did a tremendous job finishing All-State in the 800 meter run. Give her a round of applause. And next, we have Macy Ermitich here, so she can stand up as well. Give her a round of applause. Macy had a tremendous finish to the season as well. I mean, every time I think I saw you run the 2 mile, it was a personal best, capping it off with 10:33 in the 2 mile. So you get some reference. That's like, very fast. And she did that at state meet to finish in 3rd place. And what a tremendous season for Macy. Lots more to come from her, too. Give her a round of applause. The one person that's not here that I didn't mention yet is Elena Todnam. She's a senior for us, and she was somebody else that at the end of the season just kept having personal best after personal best, and then finishing 8th in the mile run at the state meet. So all these girls did a great job. Way to go, girls.
Thank you, Matt. I think it's also important to note for all of the sports and activities that we're recognizing tonight, not only the coaches and the time they put in, school is done and they're still running and playing lacrosse and doing all of these things after school has been out for actually a couple of weeks. And so just a shout out to all of our coaches and students who, they could be sleeping in, enjoying their summer, and instead they're coming in practicing and getting it all done. So congratulations. Next up, we have our girls lacrosse girls to recognize, and I'd like to call John Gargulo up here to talk about them.
I'll be brief. It's been about 10 years since I've been in front of you guys pitching lacrosse to get into the school. Yes, I'm still here coaching it. So. But I switched over from coaching boys to girls a few years ago, and this season, just to recap real quick, was the best season that we ever had. We went 20-3, and we finished 6th in the state, which is like a really big deal for us. The highlights of the season, some of you may get this, was beating Hinsdale Central middle of the season. That was the first conference loss in their entire history of their program. Wow. So that was a big deal. And then just want to thank our administration for allowing us to host the sectionals where, yes, we won the sectional and we beat Bennett for that. So that was a great deal. So, but a big part of that was both Erica and Ashley. And Erica, 2-year starter on varsity. She tore her ACL her sophomore year and had a big comeback. Came back as our core defender, captain of the team both seasons, and just killed it. And she's going to continue on at spacing, but I'll get it in a second. But she's going on to play Division II. And then Ashley Paquette, 4-year player for us, absolutely killed it. Broke all kinds of records for us. She's the highest scoring player that we've ever had. And she's going on to play at Eastern Michigan. Oh, yeah, Erica's going to Rockhurst, sorry. And so we're just super proud of them. My only regret of the season is just seeing them go. It's just, but, it's been 10 years, another 10 years. We'll have more names up here for you and keep getting these awards for these guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, I'd like to introduce Mark Wasik, our head boys volleyball coach, to recognize our 2 students here.
My assistant, Aaron Moore, is here too today. So we've got 2 all-state recognees. Zach Baker is our first. He was our second team All-State member this year. So Zach, if you want to stand so we can recognize you. First team All-State is Aiden Akawi. And these two guys were just kind of the foundation and the pillars of our team. We've also got Ryan Enright, who isn't here today, but he is one of our student reps who's a member of the program as well. We had probably the most successful season in the history of the program, and we've had some really good teams. And sadly, we lost in the regional final on our own floor to a very underseeded team. But we ended up finishing third in the media in state. So at least we were recognized to be one of those top teams. We really proved to be a formidable team who took first in 2 tournaments, second in another, and third in the 4th tournament. And those were all the best teams in state. So, lesson learned in terms of making sure we're ready to go every night, it's individually versus just on 2 nights for tournaments. But these guys were our rocks. They were 6 rotation players, and we couldn't have done it without them, and their recognition is deserved. Zach is going to continue at Illinois State University, and Aiden's going to play Division I volleyball at Lindenwood University. So we're looking forward to watching his career when he continues on. Thank you.
I think after our spring season, I think I've developed like a heart issue watching all of these really tight and close matches and games. It's been really exciting. But it's been really fun to watch. As it is summer, we have a lot of sponsors and students who are doing all of their things for summer. So I'm going to talk about our next couple of recognitions here. First up, we have DECA, and as some of you might recall, some of our DECA students came to visit us here at a board meeting and talked about their program and the enormous growth that we've seen in DECA. And so we're really, really excited to congratulate the following students here. 4 of the students, the 4 students who came here are all up here and represented on our slides, which is very cool. So Joey Goodwin, 2nd place in business management. Megan Hill, 2nd place in buying and merchandising operations research. Team decision making was Nolan Herder and Russell Orso, 2nd place and 4th place for their business plan. Community Giving Project, 2nd place for Helen Justice and Kayla Solemn. In buying and merchandising operations research, 2nd place for Katie Milos. And our next slide, we have a lot for DECA. In project management sales, 3rd place for Shubri Kaur and Nicole Liu. For our startup business plan, 4th place for Kate Peterson. Entrepreneurship individual, 5th place for Ryan Gustis. Marketing communication systems, 9th place for Georgia Marzo. And for retail management series, 13th place for Vivian Metropolis. And all of these students, not only did they place at the state level, but then they all went on to compete at the national level, which took place in Orlando this year. So our department chair for CTE took all of those students to Orlando and they competed at the national level, which is very cool. And once again, for both this and for FCCLA, the very clear connections to developing businesses, to things that kids can do after high school, which is very, very cool. So congratulations to all of our DECA students tonight. I don't have any DECA students here.
Who do we have here?
I don't think we have. Do we have any DECA students tonight? I don't think we do. I didn't see any walk in. And our FCCLA students I know will not be here, but I can read their accomplishments too. For FCCLA. And again, the clear connections to things that kids can do after school or after they graduate. For Olivia Burge, she received a gold medal for designing a charcuterie board, which was very, very cool. She showed us all of the things that she was doing to prep for when she had to compete. And then Cecilia Felice, for her preschool lesson, received a gold medal. For Jennifer Carlson, a silver medal for cookie decorating. For Ashley Mascot, a silver medal for her preschool lesson, and for Priya Fisher, a bronze medal for apparel construction. So congratulations to all of our FCCLA students who medaled at the state level.
So the Village of Woodridge sent over a proclamation naming today Downers Grove North High FCCLA Day in honor of Olivia and Cecilia's gold place finish. And then the Village of Downers Grove sent over one for each of them, recognizing tomorrow, June 17th, in the name of Olivia. and Wednesday, June 18th for Cecilia.
Awesome. Thank you.
Congratulations to them.
Yes, and again, congratulations and thank you to our sponsors who spend a lot of time with these students, helping them develop these lessons and all of the things that they do for the state level. So thank you again to all of our coaches and sponsors who could be here and who could not be here tonight. I know it's a busy summer for everybody, so thank you.
South is up next. Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Happy summer. Like Courtney, it is so fun to continue following our sports after the school year ends. So we have two celebrations tonight. I'm going to start by introducing Coach Doug Plunkett from Girls Track and Field. You can see that we have 3 athletes who earned All-State at the state meet, so super exciting. With us tonight is Kaylee, so why don't Doug and Kaylee both come up? And Doug can give you some highlights from the season.
All right, hello everybody. Again, my name is Doug Plunkett. We had a really good track season this year. All throughout the season, our largest team that we've ever had at South, and I think we won our conference this year for the 20th year in a row. So it was a real good year. When we got to the end of the season, we had a lot of outstanding athletes that qualified for the state meet, and what was really cool this year is they got to do it on our home track and our kind of our brand new track and facility out there, which is amazing. And I just want to say that I've never received so many compliments from all of our visiting coaches for the facilities that we had out there, and I think it's awesome. But we had 9 events that qualified for state this year. We had 3 events, as you can see up there, where our athletes finished as all-state athletes, starting with 6th place in the 2-mile was Nia Ortega, and then 4th place in the triple jump was Karen Bioke, and then here with us tonight, our one senior out of that group, finishing 4th in the pole vault, Kaylee Rodek. So congratulations. Just want to mention Kaylee is also our indoor and outdoor school record holder in the pole vault. She had a great jump at sectionals of 12.6, which is amazing. She's worked really, really hard over these 4 years and is going to continue her vaulting at College at DuPage next year. So I'm wishing her good luck, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, I'm going to ask Phil Pikowski to join me. So our boys lacrosse coach, Sean, is our WSC Coach of the Year, and his wife just had a baby, I believe within the last 48 hours. So he has asked his assistant, Mr. Phil Pikowski, to be here tonight. So we are celebrating Sean, who, like I said, is our WSC Coach of the Year. Then we also have Nathan. So Nathan, come on up. Nathan has been recognized by the IBLCA statewide boys lacrosse organization as a first-team All-State. So Phil is going to talk to us a little about the season and celebrate Nathan.
Hello, good evening. It is my honor to introduce Nate Peak tonight. I wrote down some of his accomplishments because there are quite a few. Nate is a 4-year varsity starter for the Downers Grove lacrosse team, playing the position of goalie. He has also just finished his 10th year playing lacrosse. During his time at DGS, Nate has received many recognitions, including graduating with high honors. He is a 3-year team captain, a 2-time Team Defensive Player of the Year, Team MVP his junior and senior year, a 3-time All-Conference selection, the 2025 West Suburban Conference Defensive Player of the Year, and now a first-team All-State selection. Nate will be attending College of DuPage next year, where he will continue his education and lacrosse career. His dedication and passion for the game of lacrosse really has shown in all of the accolades that he has received. So congratulations, Nate.
On behalf of just both me and Courtney, we as principals are so grateful for all the support we get from the board to support our students and all of the amazing things they do outside the classroom. So thank you.
We're actually going to take a short recess so that board members can get pictures with all of our students and coaches and get a chance to congratulate you and shake your hands. For anybody that's here and was recognized tonight, I think we're going to step which direction? This way? Okay, we're going to go out these doors and take some quick photos, and then we'll return back to our business meeting. You're welcome to stick around for the evening or to use that as an opportunity to just go enjoy the rest of the evening. It's entirely up to you.
On to item number 4, approval of minutes. Can I get a motion from the Board of Education to approve the minutes from item A, the May 19th, 2025 business meeting, item B, the May 19th, 2025 closed meeting, and item C, the June 9th, 2025 closed meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Chris moves, Kara seconds.
Thank you very much. Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
Katie Courtney.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
April Finan.
Aye.
Michael Riskey.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 5, first reception of visitors. Julie, do we have any
No.
slips?
No slips.
Okay. I'll turn this one over to Hank for item number 6.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for celebrating our kids. That's always fun and a lot of success on both sides of town. Bringing board back in on our strategic planning and the report on that and where we're at this point in the summer. As I shared earlier, as we talked about our statement of work earlier this year, next year is a focus on attendance. Just so we can review the plan that was shared with the board back in the spring, you can see all of those steps and processes. You are here last week on June 10th. We worked together to focus in on our work and make commitments around what everybody's doing around all of the indicators and measures and the strategic directions for next year. So tonight is just a high-level overview of that work and the direction we're going in. I'm going to give you just the big 30,000-foot view. If there is something that you wish to discuss further or questions you have, feel free to ask. If there's something you'd like more detailed information on, we can prepare that and bring it back at the upcoming board meetings. And then obviously we'll be reporting out on all of this work throughout the course of the year. A reminder, this was our statement of work, improvement in the area of attendance, increased accountability and consistency and consequences paired with appropriate interventions and supports. I think you're going to see that in what we present tonight. Obviously, attendance through all of the feedback that we received from our leadership team, our staff, from even students and families points to getting attendance back at expectations that resemble kind of pre-pandemic, the pre-pandemic experience. A reminder, our strategic plan inside of it has 4 strategic directions. Underneath each of those are expectations, and then indicators are the measurables that go along with those. So there's a one-pager document that's been shared with the board. It's available on our website the website has the strategic plan on it, and then underneath it is a link to this document that contains the measurables of those strategic indicators. So really, the idea is that attendance is at the center of our work next year, and all of those 4 directions wrap around and support that goal of improving attendance. So underneath there are the different indicators and measurables that should see either through our work an increase next year or at least maintaining the levels that we're at now are all listed there. So the kind of big bullets there in the top right-hand corner, the larger size there, those are the ones that support most directly our work next year, right? So back at the statement of work, it's focused on attendance through interventions and supports, and we believe that we will see academics improve as a result of that. Those are those 3 strategic indicators. They all fall under one single strategic direction. We'll get in that in a second. Then the rest of those that you see up there, are ones that we expect to at least maintain where they're at. And then there is a theoretical belief, the one in the bottom right-hand corner, morale. Based on the feedback from all of our staff, we expect to see increased results in our annual survey around morale as we achieve the goals related to attendance. Attendance, interventions, and grades all fall under this strategic direction of growth of student ownership and agency. You can see the expectations are those bullets each listed there. And then you can see that main expectation overall for our measurables is that 100% of our kids are accountable or being supported in their learning through their own personal ownership and agency. So they're either hitting our goals or we've identified that they're falling short and we are providing supports for them to achieve their goals or work towards it at least. You can see the attendance, grades, and interventions are those goals in the middle, and then our measures of success are listed there. So our overarching attendance goals: regularly attend school. We're going to look at it each year and over a 5-year amount. Regularly attend is that chronic absenteeism mark, but there's other sub-indicators underneath that come in more real time that we'll be reporting to the board. Then you can see the grade around achievement and taking access of interventions. And then that metric says to be determined. That was last year. We have determined that metric to be, are we providing interventions at the teacher level, the tier 1 level, for students that are not getting a C or better. All right, so questions up to this point. I'll take a breather before I keep diving in. Any questions come to mind at this point of the presentation? If not, I'll get into the details. All right. Attendance, Travis is picking up this one this year as he moves over to help assist our deans and discipline processes across the district. And that falls in line with the switch to Infinite Campus, our student information system, as a lot of the data we're going to be looking at and tracking in there. And a lot of our processes are tied to that we're improving, as well as safety and security are closely related to that, all underneath Travis's oversight from the district office. You can see here the goal is that all students will be in regular attendance or will be supported. So that's either they're doing what we expect them to do around attendance, or we've identified that they need additional supports and we're providing those. Our objective is that we want everybody in class. We want them to be there. Like you gotta show up to win. So that's what we want our students to be doing. And you can see underneath there some of the key tasks we've outlined as part of our work in this. As we move into the school year, for all of these things, you'll start to get more granular details and data around these things and some stories about what's happening in our schools as a result. But like I said, this is kind of that 30,000-foot view at this point of where we're at heading into our work this summer. So any questions on anything you see up there on the screen? Happy to dig in a little bit at this point, or Travis can help support me in that as well.
The new attendance system, can you expound upon that?
It's with Infinite Campus.
Okay, just that, okay, all right. I didn't know if it was like a new way of approaching attendance or.
No, but it is, so with the scanning functionality, right, into the building, which doesn't take attendance, but it lets us know who's in the building. But then the in-class and then the office scanning, it's gonna allow us to better keep track of where students are at any one moment. But we are looking, we had period attendance before, we are minute attendance. So we may see a change in our overall attendance metric in our reporting. So we're looking at that and we'll keep that in mind as we go through. So it's a different way to calculate it. Infinite Campus does it on a minute basis. So to keep in line with our tardy time frame where we have it up to 10 minutes, you're tardy. It will count all of those as tardy. As soon as that happens after the 10th minute, it changes to an absence, right? So we've had that in place but it is going to automatically, when a student scans in, it will automatically make that calculation. So we're going to be monitoring what that data looks like.
Travis, how did that dry run go at the end of the school year where the kids were using it?
It went great,
Did
yeah.
it?
So the kids picked up on it real quick. And remember, they can use the student portal, the app, right? They did a really good job of utilizing that, or they can use their regular ID, or they can use a picture that they took of their ID on their phone, right? So there's multiple ways that kids can use their ID in that, but it went really well. We're really glad we did that. And then we're also doing lots of different pilots during summer school related to that. So we're still doing some building scanning, and this second half of our second block, if you will, of summer school, some of our teachers are actually going to pilot the during class, right? So the check-in during class, so we can monitor that and see what that looks like and go through. So we're really happy that we've been able to utilize both of those situations, as well as we're doing our meal service during summer school. So we've been able to get rid of some hiccups that we would have experienced in a much smaller scale. So things are progressing really nicely. A lot of hands are in making this work, and we're sitting in a really good spot.
Could you maybe talk a little bit about the support that the staff will get, because it's going to be some growing pains, kids forgetting to sign in, oh, I was there, I was not, what kind of support will the staff get, and then what kind of adjustment or, that period, what is that going to look like, and how much time are we going to give them?
Sure. So we're going to do training at the beginning of the year, hand over hand, so that I think it's not the first day of our institute. I think I don't remember if it's the second or third.
It's not the first, second or third.
I think it's the third day. We come back, and so we'll have breakdown, and here's what that looks like. So we are slow rolling, if you will, the full functionality of the attendance component. So we are doing right now just the scanning in component, and we're keeping the paper for like hall passes, and even as they come from the office, the students will still scan in and out, but we'll still have that functionality. So really, for the teachers in looking at that, their role in that is making sure that the number of students are in class that are being reported in Infinite Campus. So they have, just like they do now, they have until the time that the office finalizes the attendance in there to make any changes, right? Or if a parent calls in and they go through and they make again a finalization that way, where it would say, hey, this student is absent and excused, right? So that would show up in the system, but that is more office driven. So as students come in, I'm telling you, students scan in right now. Before we even did that pilot, they scan in, they do it for lunch. If they come in late to school at a different time, I'm not saying that they're late, but at a different time than the start, they're scanning in. So they're very used to that functionality. It will be in the classroom. We'll have scanners in every single classroom, right? And so we'll have lots of support to make sure that that is running smooth. We're going to be going through having some working lunches where we'll have opportunities for staff to come if there's any questions, if there's anything along those lines, and we'll be monitoring it like crazy to make sure that things are running smoothly.
So as you're talking about the minutes,
Yeah.
the one thing that jumped to my mind was when they when they have to leave, I need to go to the washroom, where I'm just thinking, like, are you at some point, are we looking at down to that minute? Because we know that students can go and then they begin the wandering, and then we know comments, how did,
Yep.
and I know that's a very
Yep.
specific question, but that's part of your rolling out.
Further down the road, there is a hall pass functionality in Infinite Campus. So that is something that we're going to be looking at the earliest, probably second semester, after we get through a lot of the different components there. But remember, we'll have, because we're doing the scanning into the building, we'll know who's in the building. We can run a report at the beginning of the period after the first 10 minutes, and we can know, hey, they're in the building, but they're not in a location, right? And so we can utilize that information to have some other interventions as might be needed. So Yeah, there will be growing pains, right? We know that. It's a change, it's going through, but we're going to have as many different layers of support, and we'll adapt as those come up.
So, just for clarification, they're scanning in to get into the building,
Yeah.
and then they're scanning into each of the classrooms that they're in. Okay, and then so they can scan in with their physical ID,
Yep.
picture of their ID,
Correct.
or the app.
Yep.
And it's the Infinite Campus
Yep.
app. Okay.
Student portal.
And forgive me, I think the principals mentioned it last time. Roughly how many of the students were using the app versus like their physical ID in that first week?
It was a large percentage were using the actual app.
I don't have the exact number, but there was a large number of kids who used their app, and then a lot of them would come in and then download it while they were standing there and then use it.
Yep.
There were still kids who used their physical ID too.
Yeah, the vast majority are, like, when they're scanning in, if you're just watching from afar, they're using their phones. So it's either like their digital ID or the app.
So again, they don't have to use their phones. They can use that digital ID or their personal ID that they have physical, and it does the same thing because it reads the barcode.
Is there any internal conversations about potentially at some point phasing out using their phones to sign in, given that we're trying to institute some sort of cell phone policy? Is there like a thought that maybe having them pull out their phone to scan into the classroom is not the best way to go
No
about it?
concerns about that at all. It's going to be a blended model of when it's appropriate to have the phone and when it's not.
Okay. Okay.
All right, any other questions on attendance? All right, interventions, that was the top goal identified by the board. That obviously supports attendance greatly inside of there. So you can see, we want to identify students that need supports and then make sure that they're taking advantage of those. And then obviously inside of that, you're checking to see if those are successful for students. So that's the tracking of the progress. You can see one of the things we're most focused in on is the continuation of our grading interventions from last year, which is that first one. So our associate principals for instruction following up with students that are not achieving at the top level that we expect in real time, and then making sure that the interventions the teachers are providing are tracked in Infinite Campus in that new system. The new system should help us there because before it was kind of like two separate systems that loosely talk to one another. Now it'll all be in the same box, so that will help. And then using those dashboards to make sure that we're utilizing those contacts in real time as well. As you can see, as we go through this, with attendance being our top priority, that's where we're putting a lot of our time and resources. You'll see with this one, like interventions, obviously there'll be grading intervention or attendance interventions, but those are somewhat more under the attendance group. Here, these interventions are tied to those academic interventions that are in place. It's about maintaining those, maybe slightly improving those, but you're going to see with the rest of this, the goal is maintain our current level. If we can improve them through our work to do so, but the majority of our time and efforts will be spent around attendance.
So with attendance, when is, at what level are interventions deemed necessary? At what level are the red flags coming up?
It is somewhat student specific, but there are in our handbook, like we're making changes you'll see tonight around like tardies to start those interventions happening more quickly. Then there are the same things already in the handbook around attendance. And then of course, we're always concerned when a student starts to push up that more than 10% of the year to date missed. That's that chronic absenteeism level, and that's when things are going to escalate quickly.
Because it seems the earlier that we can identify it and proactively address it, the quicker we can solve the problems.
And that's where having better record keeping and more integrated record keeping will help us find that quicker. Yeah. Grades has been the goal for a great number of years as we worked through common grading practices across the district. You can see it maintains as the goal. The ultimate goal is to try to get students to earn a C or better in all of their classes with support from their teachers, right? We know that sometimes students make other choices that make that difficult or impossible, but with those, you're going to see that we, gave our efforts to try to support students to get across that C or better finish line. You can see there the practices that have been going on will continue, so monitoring that data, making sure that we're using those Tier 1 practices, those classroom level practices, and then grade communications related to that, making sure we're checking in on how those interventions at Tier 1 are working. And obviously, when students have issues that are combined with not achieving C or better, like attendance issues or multiple Ds or Fs, then we start moving into Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions at that point. So we're really looking here at the major focus is students that are regularly attending, that are engaging in what's expected of them in the classroom. That's the key focus of Tier 1. And when those things aren't happening, we start adding additional supports there. Questions on that one? All right, so that's all the three within that domain of student ownership and agency. The next three domains, you're going to get, because this is our key focus of area, we kind of drilled in, like grades has been our focus for the last couple of years. Interventions are always a focus in this domain. And then attendance is our key one. So we drilled in kind of a level into the strategic directions for this domain. The next three domains, we're going to just back out to that overall strategic direction level. All right, so equitable and supportive environment. In here are a variety of our climate surveys, right? Our CSCI climate survey. In here is relationship mapping. It's the monitoring of student participation in activity and athletics, and tracking our behavior interventions. So all of those fall in there. And the goal is to try to have students have meaningful connections to the school and to others while they're here. We want to make sure that we're seeing students involved and we're seeing students following the behavioral expectations within there. We'd like to see that work pay off both in that data, but also in those climate surveys. One that we're required to give at the end of the year, and then the others that we give to just check in on our strategic plan. So you heard a lot about activities and athletics. This is an example where they're planning on cross-referencing that connection in athletics and activities to attendance and finding out how that impacts that and how to drive that in a stronger direction throughout the year with students that are engaged in that or by not engaged in that, and how do you get them engaged and moved in. So that's really what we're looking at in that direction. Questions there? All right. The next one is post-secondary planning. This is an area where we are really hitting we're hitting our measures really close to almost perfect in these. As you saw, capstone, it's a high level of our students that are engaging in our capstone courses over their 4 years. And then 4-year planning will come back and report on last year at the end of the summer. But you're going to see 4-year planning is being done at a very high level across the district. And then obviously within our access classes, there's a Tier 1 counseling program where every student is engaging in appropriate lessons related to their year in school. So this is an area where the metrics show that we're achieving at a high level. This is one where if we continue to hit those metrics for another year, we probably need to have a conversation with the board here as to what other indicators would you, like we've established, we do these things at a high level. Is there another area you'd like for us to dip into to start stretching ourselves somewhere else? So this is probably the first domain where the indicators that we're working on, we're going to be able to demonstrate that we're meeting those expectations.
Just for clarification, could you specify what capstone means, just general knowledge?
Yeah, there's a whole definition that, you know, Gina, Jake, and Keith will come back and present. So I'll give you the high level kind of thing. I don't have the specific words right now, but the gist is that it is the top level of a sequence of courses. So you've made it to you made it to Spanish 4, right? That's the end of a sequence. Or you've gone and taken an AP class. That's, you know, a college preparation class or a dual credit course. All of these things that are at the top level of a sequence at TCD, you know, like in culinary, right? All of these things are ones that indicate that you've made it to the capstone. You've made it to the top level of a sequence or of college preparation type coursework.
Okay, gotcha.
So we want every one of our students to engage one of those in at least one of those, right? In the area that is appropriate for them, at least one of those by their senior year.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on this?
One other
Yeah.
question. I don't know if it's super related, but at post-secondary, we don't really have any metrics to track post-secondary success of any of our graduates. Like
After high school?
Yeah.
We have limited success factors. We have some information we get from College DuPage for students that choose that pathway. We have some NCAA clearinghouse data for students that go on into, you know, 2 or 4 year institutions. But when you look at the whole picture, it's really difficult to gather post-secondary data. We have started giving a survey to our graduates, but I mean, it's limited as to your contact information, who's going to follow up with you afterwards. You know, I can't say definitively for the class of 2024, a year later, here's what they did. There's no data set that gives us that.
Okay.
It is been an area of frustration amongst high schools forever. That
Yeah.
There isn't like a check-in 1 year later, 3 years later, 10 years later, right? So, any other questions? All right, and then our final one, recruitment, retention, support of high-quality teachers and staff. You can see under here, this is a lot of really this comes down to professional development activities and our morale survey that we give each spring. You can see our team is really continuing the Innovation Steering Committee. That's a group of teachers and administrators that are really working on what kind of professional learning that we need over the course of the next year. You can imagine a lot of that professional learning next year will tie to attendance. And of course, the new student information system, right? We're working on forming a similar group for our support staff. So a support staff professional development committee. We've been working with the Support Staff Association. They've provided us some ideas of things to do in that, and then we'll get that up and going next year as well. We have some planning also going for our CMG group as to how professional growth would look for that group next year. And then, as you know, we have a data tool that we use to gather feedback after each one of those learning opportunities throughout the course of the year. And then we use that feedback to tweak what we do moving forward. Any questions on that? All right. So once again, attendance is at the focus. All of those things are built to support it. The goal is to move forward attendance, use interventions, and we expect we'll see increases in grades and morale through that work. Any questions that I haven't gotten to up to this point? All right, I'd like to thank, here publicly, the administrative team for the amount of work that they've put in, over this spring. Like, they were doing second semester, but they were also doing all of the planning for the next school year. Many school districts, this is the summer work of planning for the next school year. We know what our work is for next year, so we're spending our summer getting a head start on all of these things that you see there. So as a district, we're probably 2 to 3 months ahead of where we've been in prior school years and where most districts are at this point. So the administrative team has had to juggle planning for next year while running a school year, so it's taken a lot of time and effort on their parts, and they have a ton of work that they have scheduled to do over the course of the summer. We have a senior cabinet check-in on July 15th where we'll kind of see where we're at in all of these things. And then we'll do a report out on July 28th when we're next back together on kind of where we look headed into the next school year. All right. Next topic is Student and Parent Athletic Activities Handbook. We have a couple of key items in here. First one, the Athletics Activity Handbook. There's no changes in there. As you may know, we have 2 assistant principals for athletics. One that started 2 years ago in Brandon and one that started last year in Dave. Both of them have this on their list of tasks over this year to really dig into that and look at a couple of areas where we might have some differences from industry standard at this point, in areas in which we can make some improvements in there, and also things that align with the initiatives we have around increasing activity or enrollment in athletics. So that's coming probably a year from now. Student Parent Handbook, summary of the key changes in there. You have a document that has all of these in it, and you've had access to that. There's a couple of kind of small changes here, right? Changing the name from Student Parent to Student Family to just be more reflective of those connections that we have out there. Updating some of the absent reporting expectations in Infinite Campus. There's a portal in which parents can go in and report those absences, and that's the preferred pathway for next year. There's some dated dress code gang affiliation language in there that's no longer applicable to today's standards. As we mentioned earlier, there's a warning system that we're adding and revising, discipline for tardies. That warning system kicks in much earlier than our current practices are next year, and that all aligns with what we shared earlier. In the second semester, we had a team of administrators and teachers engaged in updating our academic dishonesty expectations. Those are reflected in the language that's there. That really came out of discussions around AI, but it was more sprawling than that as well. One of the key things in there is the board may be aware is the practice in our district is that the grading scale starts at 40% and goes up to 100. However, this is the one situation where if after multiple interventions a student is still engaging in academic dishonesty, that the grade in the grade book would be a 0, which on a 5-point grading scale, that would be like getting a -5 or 6 in the grade book. So it is a significant grade-altering punishment if a student continues to engage in academic dishonesty. There's also some expectations in there for sharing with students around AI and those kinds of things, and just to make it clear of what the expectations are around an assignment so that a student understands if they're choosing to engage in academic dishonesty or not. So that's in there and clarifies part of that. And then the other one that we've been working on for all of second semester is personal electronic device revisions. So this work began back in January. Some of the board members that were at the table before and some that are here now asked for me to engage with teacher leaders through the DGA. Josh, who's in the room right now, he and I met, had some conversations. He had some conversations with some teachers, got their feedback. Then Josh and I discussed what we believed the next best steps should be going forward. I shared with the board back in February that we had come to the decision that teachers need a little more support, perhaps also through some consistent like FAQs and directions that teachers could count on that would be like guidelines or procedures. updating some of those and responding to questions the teachers have out there on this. And then also providing a standard device storage option in each classroom for teachers to use. Once we reached the point of discussing that, Governor Pritzker came out with his legislative agenda and announced that one of the top things on his agenda was having legislation and law passed around managing cell phones in classrooms. Updated staff and the board on that throughout the spring. We were very shocked when, come the end of the legislative session on May 31st, that there was no legislation passed. But on, the end of April, I had committed to the staff that if legislation hadn't passed, that we would have some options for them when they returned the next school year. So we quickly got to work, when we got back to work that following Monday, on June 2nd, and started working on language that's very similar to what was in the legislation that was proposed. And what, in my meetings with teachers throughout the school year and drop-in sessions and in other communications with teachers, the biggest things that were asked for was some kind of standard storage, and if students weren't following those expectations, that not so many warnings would have to be given. So that was the request from teachers. So we got to work over the last couple of weeks. Travis reached out to some of our teachers that have been using and departments that have been using storage over the last several years. It's been an option for teachers to require storage. It just hasn't been our default setting. So we found some options that worked. We decided on a standard one across the district, which is very similar to a shoe caddy, because that one could be mounted to a wall, kind of not next to a door where somebody couldn't grab a device easily and walk out. It doesn't take up any table space. Table space in a classroom is a lot of times at a premium, so we could just find a spot to mount it. We'll work with department chairs and building administration over the next month or so here, once we get those in, to get those mounted in the best possible location.
That'll be at every classroom?
Every classroom would have that default one. So we would provide that for every teacher.
Any idea like what that might cost the district?
We know exactly what it would cost.
$13 or $14.
About $14 a piece.
Yeah, piece.
We ordered 450 of them.
No, $250.
250, sorry. 450 was our original, 250, you're right.
So 250.
Okay. And there's no cost with like mounting or installation?
It'll be our CMG time and
Okay.
coordination.
So, okay. So it's a minimal expense we're talking about.
Yeah, it'll take some time, but it's 4 screws in a wall.
Okay.
But we're saying that teachers, I feel like it's not very strict, like teachers are not required to use.
So let me get into the language here in a
Okay,
second
yeah, 'cause
of
I've got some.
what it does. I just want to give the background,
Okay.
right? And why we're coming now is what we were. So we fully expected that we would have state law in front of us right now. We don't, right? But we made a commitment to our teachers to provide them some additional options when they return next year. Tonight, and then we want to get it to our families by next Tuesday when they start the enrollment process, right? So we have this tight window here, because when families enroll, they sign off an initial on the student handbook. We don't want to give them one version of the student handbook next week, and then they sign off on a version, and then it changes. Now, we do have the right to change the handbook, right? However, legally, we have greater level of protection for any handbook that's been signed off on, right? So could we still do this at any point of the school year, or make a change? Like, if we find out something here that we decide to do is not working, we can always make changes and inform families. But the strongest way to do that is in advance of the enrollment process. So that's kind of why we're here today. I know that traditionally, the board has received multiple opportunities to review policy or any of those things in advance. We really thought for sure we'd have state legislation at this point, right? That it would be handed to us, we'd be coming in and saying, we updated our handbook to match the state law, here it is, right? And that we wouldn't have a lot of options of what is there. It turns out that didn't happen. So what you have tonight are some options, or some language in the policy that provides options for our teachers. So, and also remember that any student handbook language, we have state law under Senate Bill 100 where we can't have zero tolerance policies. We need to consider the situations of each student as we go into it. So that's why you see a lot of the things that outline what some of the discipline outcomes could be, but it doesn't declare if this happens, this is the immediate outcome, right? We need to consider those things when utilizing discipline. So let's talk through the way it works right now, and then let's talk about what the proposed change is. So the way that it works right now is the default position of all phones in the district in instructional spaces is that they are off and away and silent, or silenced and away, not necessarily off. Silenced away, that the student's not engaging in that device unless the teacher has given permission through some fashion that the device is allowed to be used. And that could be any number of ways in which the teacher determines that, right? It could be at this regularly scheduled time of class, you're allowed to take your device out. It could be you're never allowed to take your device out. It could be when I tell you for an instructional purpose, take out your phone, you can't, right? The teacher gets to set the rules for that classroom space, okay? The expectation is that that has been communicated to all students and families, especially through the syllabus at the start of each semester, that a conversation happens about that. And then if a student violates, though that's been communicated, a student violates it, that there's a communication with that student, like a warning that occurs. If the student continues to engage in that, after that conversation, we reach out to the parents, and if that continues, it goes through a dean's referral, which also includes a parent communication. Teachers have always been allowed to set kind of the minutia details of that in their own instructional space, to manage that and monitor it. And once they follow those procedures, it gets taken into the discipline dean's department. We have many teachers that are using a variety of different devices or storage units to manage devices. We have whole departments that have been doing it for a while. We have individual teachers that do. What those look like vary from the unit that we're putting in that are like, you know, like I said, like a shoe caddy, to things that are just like devices, like little cabinets that they store on their desk. There's a variety of different tools that have been used out there. So we already have that.
What other question related to the teacher discretion? So like currently with the
Yep.
number of warnings, is that also teachers
Yeah,
can
teacher-
decide whether I give
right.
2 warnings and then it goes to the dean, or I give 5, it's their decision?
What we give them is the minimum.
Okay.
Right, the minimum number of interactions that need to happen. Some teachers give more, teachers can't give less than that right now, okay? So, and that's kind of what's set up. As we heard over the course of the year was, or the last couple of years, was that the number of warnings is cumbersome and gets in the way, reminding students all the time to do that. That for some students, just having the device in their proximity is too challenging. And what am I forgetting? And that the default that we have as a setting right now is difficult across the district, that a more stringent default would be a more preferred setting. And then providing teachers some like FAQs and some helpful tips are some other things that have been asked for, right? So that everybody has a better understanding of what the rules are around that. So what I'm bringing you tonight is the what, not the how, right? So this is kind of the default rules of phones in classrooms. And then we'll pull together, assuming that the board approves it tonight or whenever the board approves it, I'll send out a message to staff saying that the new default is this. If you have questions about this, let us know in this form here. If you'd like to volunteer to be part of the team that comes together to craft the guidelines for your peers, let us know here. And then over the next several weeks, we'd work on all of that, and then we'd start sharing with, as we get those documents together, we share them with the administration, we share them with the board, and eventually with the staff. So that's the big overarching concepts. Let's get into the details. So really what this sets up is really 3 options for classroom teachers. The default, remember default now is silenced and away. The default now becomes stored. Okay, so the default setting across the district is a student walks, this is the way it would probably look like in most classes, because we heard most kids are using their phones as their IDs, right? They would go into class, the teacher would have some process of scan in, go put your device in your assigned spot, head back to your seat, okay? If a student doesn't put it in their defined spot, we're going to assume the kid doesn't have a phone or doesn't have it on them. As long as we don't see the phone and it's not accessed, the assumption is that no phone exists, right? If the student takes their phone out or goes and removes theirs or another student's phone from the cubby, we're going directly to a dean's referral. Okay, it skips over all of the warnings. We've established the classroom procedures. You've been given direct instruction of how you're supposed to operate in this space. And now you have twice violated it by either not using the cubby and putting your device in there, or you put your device in there and then you went and accessed it without permission, right? So it accomplishes the 2 big things that we heard from teachers that we were looking for. 1, a common storage area, and 2, a more streamlined discipline process. So that's the default. Now, classroom teachers are the experts on classroom management in their space, so this is about giving teachers options, not dictating how they operate as professionals. So I would imagine they've been operating just fine under the current rules and might just choose to just keep operating in that, let other people try out this new method, for whatever reason. They're just going to keep their current practices, and if they do, then the current practices stay. Number of warnings, everything else, okay? And then I would imagine we'll have some teachers choose an option that's blended between those 2. That might have students just keep their devices. So keep it silenced, keep it away, and then would escalate it if they see the student with the device, would then transition to, okay, now I've seen it, you've taken it out, go store it, right? Or I have to keep talking to you about it, so now you're on the list of students that by default it's stored, right? And teachers will fall somewhere between either the old model or the new model, but it's their professional practice, their professional environment where they have the authority to make those decisions. We would work with teachers and administrators over the summer to, build the language and FAQs, as I said, around to support that. But where it starts is today, setting that rule, and that's what this language does, it sets the default as stored when you enter the classroom, and you don't touch it unless the teacher gives you permission to touch it, and it skips over the warnings if then you don't follow those directions or you access your device without teacher approval. So that's the proposal for tonight. I'll take questions that you might have at this point.
How long is the passing period between classes?
Typically 5 minutes.
So I guess the only thing that makes me worried about all this is is there going to be a backup at the classroom when now we're asking students to do 2 things when they walk in the classroom? So
we were afraid of that as we had 2,000 students plus arriving at the door in the morning, and we're not seeing that.
It was okay?
Yeah, there's really no line as students come in the door. I can tell you from my experience as a band teacher that I had a band of 400 kids that scanned in every day because it was too many kids to take attendance from, and there was never a backup with students scanning into the band program. So, and there's schools around the country that are doing this in Infinite Campus, people that Travis and his team have talked to. We don't expect that. It's instant. They hit that ID, it scans, they can walk right past it.
Taking that phone out of that cubby at the end of class and knowing that each child is getting their phone and not grabbing someone else's phone, is that going to deter teachers from wanting to do this, and therefore we're taking away a structure? You know, like,
I don't think so. We have added in the language there that you're bringing your phone at your own risk, which is what most most schools that are following this protocol have included, to make it clear, like, we're not expecting that you bring a phone to school, right? And we're expecting that you are only handling your device, right? And students have phones on desks. Students there are phones floating around the school. So the expectation at any point wouldn't be to touch anybody else's property, even if, it was in that location.
If the governor had passed the bill,
Uh-huh.
all phones in all classrooms would be stored, correct?
Depends. In the language that they were talking about, it was that schools had to provide a secure device for this. It was similar to, it wasn't that must or shall. There was also a lot of holes that were punched in that as well. Students with IEPs, students with 504s, or student with a note from any medical practitioner would not be required to store their device. So there would have been a lot for us to manage, especially that note from any medical practitioner, that would have made it probably like this anyway, that you would have ended up with a lot of students getting notes, and then the default is it's on you, silenced and away. We wouldn't be able to make the requirement that you store it. So I think in the end, it would have, in practice, ended up looking very much like this.
Will there be medical exemptions, like for diabetic students?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd still have to have all of those exemptions, and then it'd be the same type of expectations. It's off and away, right, unless for a medical reason you need it. Same thing with our students with IEPs or 504s, like special accommodations that could require the use of a phone. It'd be off and away unless you're using it for that intended purpose. Same thing in our English learning classrooms. That's another setting where phones can be a tool for learning. But a lot of times in those settings, our teachers have navigated that already.
I'm just a little confused with you're talking about like the three potential pathways, right? Where there's
Yep.
the new standard is they scan in, they drop their phone in the cubby, they sit down. If they don't and they pull it out, or if they take it from the bin, immediate referral. That's
the option for the teacher, is an immediate referral.
And that's like the standard that would be expected if teachers just following standard protocol.
Right, if they're following that baseline, that's what they would do. And of course, a referral to the dean also involves the parent, or the teacher contacting the parent as well.
Okay.
Right, that's part of the referral process.
And then, so
we're giving teachers options, all staying with what they currently have. If,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to manage phones, I don't even think about them. My expectation in the classroom is I never see the thing. And if I see it, I'm going to remind you. And then if I see it again, I'm going to let your parents know. And if I see it again, it's a dean's referral. And they're totally comfortable managing that. They don't want to deal with the scanning and the storing and the managing of devices over there. And to them, it's just silent, away. I don't want to ever see it. I don't want to manage it. I don't want to have anything to do with your phone, right? For some teachers, the idea of having to manage the cubby and the storage and all of that could feel like more work than a process that they've established over the last several years that's working for them. I don't want to take that option away from them, right? But we're saying the default. If you don't know any better, the default in a classroom is you scan into your class and then you go put your device away. That's the default. And then we allow our professionals to determine how to work between those two edges of the tools we're giving them.
okay.
So personally, I think there should be a standard structure that all the teachers have to follow. Because otherwise, and I would think, you would have a situation where if you have 5 different teachers doing 5 different things, interpreting this rule 5 different ways, when students go from classroom to classroom, they can play on the fact, well, so-and-so in that classroom let me do X, so-and-so in this classroom let me do Y, which in turn makes the teacher's job, the last teacher, that much harder. So I think that if it was more consistent across the board, it would be much easier to manage, and the message given to the students would be much more consistent.
I can appreciate that perspective, but nearly every classroom rule we have is set and dictated and managed by that classroom teacher. Whether it's talking, bringing materials, chewing gum, getting up from your seats, going to the bathroom, every classroom management decision is decided by that professional in the classroom. I don't think it is my job, or quite honestly, the board's job, to tell a highly qualified, skilled professional how to manage their space. It will work out the way that it works out. You will see probably whole departments pick things because whole departments already have picked standard procedures. I think it gives this kind of more restrictive option as like the preferred default, and I think you'll see some folks go that way, but I don't think it is not my responsibility, but I think it's an overstep to get down to granular classroom management decisions as the superintendent. As a classroom teacher, I would have been insulted if my superintendent was telling me, like, pick any other thing, like how often kids can get up and sharpen pencils, or how often a student could go talk to another kid in class, or, insert behavior here. That is my job as a classroom teacher. I know my kids, I know my environment, I know my curriculum, I manage my classroom. And that is a core responsibility of a classroom teacher, and it's actually something we evaluate in the evaluation document as to how teachers are managing their classroom space and student behaviors and interactions.
So since the teachers are the experts, which I do agree, how many teachers have we consulted up to this point in developing these policies? Because it would seem, especially based on what you said, which I agree with 100%, they're the experts, they're the ones that have to do the management. How many, not a specific number, but are we reaching out to current teachers who are in the classroom every day to get their perspective on this before we set these guidelines and put these in writing?
Absolutely. As I shared, back in January, Josh and I talked. Josh checked in with classroom teachers. Throughout the year, I've had all my drop-in sessions. This has been a common topic of conversation with teachers coming and talking to me as to what options they would like to have in their classroom. Sure, there are teachers that think we should not allow them in the building at all, right? There are other teachers that have come by and been like, it's not a big deal. Like, it's fine. I don't care if kids have phone. I don't know what all the fuss is. And somewhere between those two is probably where there's, how many different teachers? There's probably that many different views between those two extremes as to what they would prefer. What we're doing here is providing consistent options for teachers to choose from. Each of these options fell in the feedback that we discussed with the DGA, also showed up in those drop-in sessions with staff, and also showed up in our spring surveys that we reviewed and analyzed from teacher feedback that we got in the spring. All of this correlates with that feedback that we received directly from teachers over the course of the year.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. Oh, sorry, were you going to add something?
Oh, no, I was.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I really appreciate that feedback. So I just think maybe the solution to that is I feel like this is a topic. I mean, it's a topic for everyone, right? Within your family, in the community, it's in the workplace. But, we came in a couple of years ago. We adopted a new policy, not having a policy. We've, asked how it's going. I appreciate the feedback from the teachers through the DGA, and I appreciate you sharing the really candid feedback, right? Like, it's not working for everybody, and some people are really frustrated. So I just think we need to keep sort of pulsing how it's going and be open to changes. And, this is just a hot topic everywhere. So
I
I
think this
just
is the-
appreciate.
Thank you.
Yeah, and, Josh, thanks for your letter and the feedback, and I think that makes us all feel, I mean, it's one thing, it's hard to manage in your own family. I can't even imagine what it is like a teacher in the classroom, so thank you for giving us that perspective, because obviously we want to be informed when we vote and make sure what we're voting on is going to actually advance and make it more tenable for these teachers.
I can't tell you that this is going to fix it for
Yeah,
everybody. I can
agreed.
tell you this is like the next
Yeah.
logical step, and then we evaluate, we listen, we see if it's working.
Yeah.
And if we have to come back in 2 months and say we got it wrong, I think I've demonstrated I'm willing to listen and adapt and change
Yeah.
based on the feedback we're hearing.
I guess when you said the consistent options seem to play against themselves, right? If you're consistent with a policy, and I understand that you want each teacher to have governance of their classroom. But the options of that consistency are there too many options? I think teachers, there's so much going on in the classroom. Is this something that those too many options aren't needed? Or from what I'm reading in this different feedback, and of course, this might just be those teachers saying, hey, listen, it's not working for me.
Yep.
I give a warning, it sits in their pocket. I give a warning, what are you going to do about it? You can't take the phone away from me. So I like that as we're increasing the default, right? We're making it a little more stringent. We're giving it must be stored, it must be silent. But are we hearing the teachers with this idea of consistency, and are we doing what they want us to do?
I think what I am hearing from teachers with consistency is that they would like it consistent across the board in the way that they prefer to manage their classroom. So yes, they would like everybody to do it the way that they do it. That would make it easier, but I've heard from several that are like, but don't do it this way, right? Which could be, don't give students the option to have a phone, or don't give the students the option to keep it in their pocket. Or I've even heard the other side, don't make me manage phones. I don't want to manage phones in the classroom, right? I would say the way that it is swung is definitely more towards give us some tools where we can put them away. That's why I've come to you with that as the default, because I would say the majority of voices that we've heard, and what Josh reported when I talked to him back in January, was they want somewhere to put phones. They want to get them, they are too distracting, that they are built to distract you, they're built to get your attention. And for many of our students, especially students that haven't developed skills to manage those, we need to get them far enough away where they don't feel the buzz, they don't know that it's calling their name, right? So that's the request for that. And I would say that's the great majority of what I have heard has been, give us that tool, give us the authority to have students put devices there. And if they don't follow our expectations, let's get to discipline quicker, right?
And can you maybe just tell us more about what that dean discipline, that referral looks like? What is the action that is taken on by the dean? What goes beyond a referral? Like, what does that referral mean?
Yeah, the referral means it then is routed to the dean. Then the dean has to consider that discipline infraction along with the totality of the whole child, right? So we need to factor in, like, is this the 20th time a teacher sent a kid down, or is this the first time? Is there other areas of, like, okay, this is the first time with the phone, but we've seen them for insubordination in the classroom related to this, this, and that. So now the phone is one more thing that's not the exact same behavior, but a related behavior. So all of those things get factored in by our deans, who are also teachers, that are trying to figure out what is the best appropriate outcome and intervention and response to the students' either first-time behavior or ongoing behavior.
So I appreciate the standard referral as like, if you see the device, you're getting a referral. Because I think teachers have been asking for, like, the law is coming down, right? If it's out, you're going to get some punishments for it. I still tend to err on in agreement with Katie and to Ken's point about, I recognize that it's not our job to manage classroom specificity when it comes to individuals' preferences and how they teach, and that's not our place, and I fully respect that. I just think with phones it's a little different because it's such a, like, it's like opening Pandora's box. Like, it's something that they shouldn't have to be in charge of. Kids should just stick it in the pocket and then they grab it at the end of the class. And if it's out, they get the referral. That's it. That should be the standard. Because, and maybe this is my ignorance, at least kids, they have Chromebooks in their classrooms. I don't think there's a teacher, at least I haven't talked to a teacher, and in my own experience in school, there hasn't been a teacher that's told me it's time to take out your phones. I don't.
No, it does. Does happen, and it is a common occurrence in some classrooms that it is used as a tool in that classroom. So, to say that it doesn't happen anywhere would be, as overreaching one way is to say that, every teacher wants all phones out of the classroom at all times. There's somewhere in that spectrum for each individual teacher and each individual classroom. And remember, we have some classrooms that are full of kids that are 14 years old. We have some classrooms that are full of kids 18 years old that are preparing to go off to somewhere beyond this, where teaching them how to use that device or that app or that tool is the appropriate thing to do in that classroom. Or you're using it for pictures or products, or it could be any number of things. A mobile phone is a very powerful tool. And in the right place with the right instructional goals, it's the absolute right tool to have. But when it's not, it can be super distracting and super difficult to manage, right? So we're trying to give teachers that realm to determine how to use that tool appropriately in their classroom. And this is our first swing at it. I think we've demonstrated if we miss, if we need to make some changes, we'll come back. We'll come back based with the feedback of our staff as to we have processes built into how we do things in the district to gather their feedback and to listen and to bring recommendations to you based on what their recommendations are. This is what we administratively believe is the next most logical place to start.
So, just to summarize, we're saying that every classroom is going to have this cubby.
Mm-hmm.
The expectation is that students will come into the classroom, put the phone in the cubby for the duration of the class. Teachers are allowed to say, hey, my classroom, you don't have to use the cubby.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep your phone. So I agree with my colleagues here. What would be the harm in saying every classroom you put your phone in the cubby? And, if we're going to have a lesson today that involves using your phone, I'll tell you, go get your phone.
Sure. So if we make that the default as the district,
Mm-hmm.
then that is what teachers must do.
Right.
So now we as administration and leaders across the district are going classroom by classroom, every class period, to make sure that every teacher is using the cubby, that that they're following it with fidelity, the kids are putting their devices in there, that we're doing that consistently across the board. And if we aren't, we're then following up with teachers and working through our discipline process for teachers that are not following that with fidelity.
So
there's going to be a great number of teachers that are not interested in us making sure that students are following that with fidelity to the point in which we are engaging in discipline of staff that are not following our expectations.
Okay, so I guess that was the part that I didn't understand, was that if we make it a policy that you must use the cubby, then we're going to follow up.
And they must use the cubby.
Yeah.
Then we make sure everybody's using the cubby, because that is the board's direction to staff, is that phones must be kept in the cubby. That is what happens with phones in the district. And then we're telling teachers, this is how you must manage your classroom. No exceptions.
I don't see any harm in saying they must be in the cubby, and then if this particular class period needs to pull out the phone, you can come take your phone out of the cubby and you can use it for whatever it is. But that just seems like another extreme, like you go in classroom to classroom, like monitoring that they're all put away, because there will, as you said, there will likely be instances where they do take them out for those. So I think it maybe I don't know if it clarifies your point, but I also don't see anything wrong with making it a must with the asterisks, except for the cases when they're going to use it, right? Not tighter than this suggestion here, but not as tight as what you were just describing. Like somewhere even in the middle of those two scenarios too, because that seems, I mean, we don't want to be disciplining staff for things that just seems like a bit of an extreme.
Well, that's what MUST ends up with, right? So that's why we're bringing you this. We're bringing you this as the option that gives teachers the authority to do that if they believe that's what's appropriate for their classroom setting, and they get the full weight of the administration support if they choose to do that in the classroom. But if they believe, based on their curriculum and their setting and their classroom and their environment and their expectations and learning goals, that the default shouldn't be that, they have the authority to pick what they think is best for the kids in front of them. And that's what I always want our teachers doing, is in as many cases as we can, giving them the authority to make the best decision for the kids that they serve. We feel like this gives them those set of options. If after we take this step, we find out that it isn't far enough, then I think we have to come back and consider a further step forward. But I don't believe that that's the spot and nor does the administration believe that that is the spot where we should be starting right now.
Nor are the teachers. So you don't have the teachers saying, let's make it mandatory. And so your administrative team and your teacher, the leadership of your teachers in your buildings are not saying what you're saying. So for you to say that what they're recommending to us is not correct because of your gut instinct, no offense, but you're not a teacher, I think you might be overstepping your bounds as a board member from my position. I think I'm comfortable listening to what our administrative team is recommending, and I'm comfortable listening to what our teachers are recommending, and I think that's what they're saying. Right now there is no policy, a default policy to put it in the cubby. So for teachers to say, okay, in my classroom, I want all phones going into a cubby, they're going to be perceived as like the uncool teachers, right? And they're going to be perceived as the really strict teachers. But if we move to this default setting, that is the default expectation, I think that removes some of the pressure from those teachers who want to go to that type of system. But at the same time, we are not mandating that for teachers who don't see that as necessary in their classroom. I think it's a bit of a compromise, but I think that's what we're hearing as being recommended by our teachers and our administrators, and I think we need to follow those recommendations.
So the letter, right, the teachers are seeking constant or consistent structures that maximize their instructional time, minimizes distractions, and reinforces a shared sense of support. So have we ever had verbiage around like not on your person, right? To say in the cubby or not on their person, because they all have their backpacks, right? They all have somewhere where that phone can be for the teachers that don't want to use the cubby, but we all just said we know the minute that phone vibrates or the minute the phone, right, it isn't automatic. And so is that something that we would feel is a nice...
Well, this does that, right?
Yeah.
This is put it away. If it's on your person, the teacher better not be seeing you using it, right? If it's in your backpack, if it's in your pocket, if you're taking it out and using it, you're already at the dean's referral spot, right? Because you were instructed to put it in the cubby, not on your person, right? If you're choosing to do something else as a teacher, as a student, like, it's your personal device. If it's not out, if it's not interfering with what's going on, we're not going to start, looking for, do kids have phones in pockets and disciplining that. Like, that's not a level we're going to go to. But yeah, that not on your person is the cubby.
Yeah.
Were you saying like instead like in the backpack is okay? Is that what you're?
Exactly. Yes. For
As
the
like a compromise between those?
Yes, exactly. Like there's some teachers that are going to say, you know what, the putting them away, the taking them out, that's not something I want to govern, but to have it in the backpack, to not have it on their person.
This would give the
It's just-
teachers the authority to do that in the classroom, but I have heard from quite a few teachers that want the authority to be, you have to take it and deposit it. Like, that's going to be the default, and that's what gives them all the way up to here, is the default expectation in a classroom is you take your phone and deposit it, right?
I would have been going like this, Katie, probably, in my backpack, and then moving it here, and,
I mean, as a teacher myself, I know they're not on their person. And so for me, that is in the backpack, and the minute I see it myself, I
So
take it.
if that's how you'd like to manage your classroom.
Right.
This student handbook would allow you to manage your classroom that way. But another teacher that wants the default of it being nowhere near your person
The
can
default
choose
is
to
the
do
cubby.
that with the cubby.
And that is the default.
And that would be the default. Yeah.
I think we stepped down this path. We stepped down. The teachers were very involved in the initial policy. They gave their feedback for that. They supported that. We're going stricter, and I think we keep stepping down that path.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, the teachers didn't write this policy language. This is from listening to the teachers and writing that. What we're going to engage them in is the guidelines and procedures and FAQs and the how with that. This is really the what of the rule to give them kind of options. And then inside that, we'll work with volunteers this summer to put together more of those like regulation and guideline pieces to get to teachers before the school year starts.
Is there any harm in letting teachers or representatives of teachers, a group of teachers, be involved in looking at the language before it's put in stone as being the way we're going?
Well, it would extend the process out, right? We're up against this deadline of enrollment, right?
But the real guideline is the beginning of the school year.
Let me finish. And we typically do not engage with teachers in writing board policy or handbook language. That's written at the administrative and board level. We write that with input from a variety of sources. So this follows kind of our same practice that we would follow for any board policy.
So what is the variety of sources that went into making this?
Everything that I've discussed with you tonight, starting back in January and talking to the DGA and sharing with you.
But I mean,
their
in our
feedback
final
was.
version, where we're at tonight, have we reached back again and say, hey, look, here's a good draft. Let me know what you think. Have we done that, or we're just moving forward based on?
Just like all other rules we
No,
wrote.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I shared it with the DGA. They submitted a letter of support in this language. You've seen that letter of support. It was shared with you. But no, did we sit down and craft it with the DGA or teachers around the table? No. But we don't for any of our other rules or policies that we write either.
It just seems that this is such a critical and such an important issue in our teachers being able to teach our students effectively and effectively utilize the time, that we need to take caution and make sure that we do it right, we do it correctly the first time.
Yeah, and we believe we have. That's what we're bringing you. That's what we as administration are here to provide for you. We've spent multiple years talking about cell phones in earnest. We've spent a semester really digging in on this. We've seen what the legislation that was proposed around this. I feel like we are bringing you something that provides that, based on the feedback that we have heard.
And Hank and I go to the Legislative Educational Network of DuPage, the LEND meetings, and this comes up because they were obviously talking about the legislation all spring, and none of the administrators that are part of that group, it's a group of board members, superintendents, and administrators. And whenever they talked about it, no one supported like a blanket, just so you know, like every school district that's part of in DuPage was all like, that's not what we want. So I do think, so it's not, this isn't the first step, this is the second step, because, 2 years ago, we adopted a policy for the first time, so this is actually step 2. And I just think related but unrelated, like just seeing in the workplace, return to office policies, it's not that dissimilar. I think companies that have come down hard and said, this is the policy, creates a lot of angst among workers when teams aren't all acting the same. I see that every day in my office, so I think kind of easing in, rolling something out, letting people adjust, and then if it's not working, but I would say here, we're giving people, more teeth, which is what the teacher said they want. For those that need that, they'll have it. For those that are managing fine, they can keep managing fine. If it gets out of hand, we'll hear, right? And they'll say, and then we can say, we'll say we gave it a trial period. But again, I feel like we're all really thinking about the teachers in our heart. It must be in the classroom, but I mean, other than Katie, right? We're not in the classroom. So I think, and I get it. The district needs time to get this in place and get it in the handbook and all that. So I do support, this version, and we try this path and go from there.
Are there any other questions I can answer?
Yeah, I was going to say, I appreciate the collaboration, right, with the teachers and everything. Based on my read, I'm not an attorney, right, but it seems like, kind of like we're doing with the attendance, we're taking a first crack at it, right, a reasonable step. On my read, it seems like it's going in that direction. That's the take I'm getting. It seems like it establishes the default, as was alluded to, puts the permission, the power in the teachers where they want it to be. So I'm encouraged by it. I think it's a reasonable first step based on my read of it, for what it's worth. But a quick logistical question, this may seem silly, but these cubbies, to go back to them, so they're like a shoot thing, so each slot's for them, right? Okay. Then is there a cover on them, just cover, so is it silence proof or not? Because I'm just curious if the kids don't silence the phone.
They should be silenced.
Yeah,
The
okay, so I'm not sure if
expectation
that's
is that they're
explicitly
silenced.
in the
Yeah.
wording per se, but, okay, so that's semantics a
Yeah,
little
it
bit.
says in
but-
the, like all devices at school,
okay.
should be silenced.
But it's, yeah, if we're talking about that first reasonable step with collaboration of the teachers, I think it's a pretty fair shake at it, is based on my understanding.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, then we'll take a look at what's not working and once again, go back and talk to the DGA leadership and our teachers and find out, keep doing what we're doing. We're constantly seeking feedback. I'm constantly available. The principals are constantly available to our teachers. We're taking all of that feedback and all of the leadership decisions we're making, and that's how we got to this point tonight.
Could you just speak to this letter from Josh here where he talks about the use of mobile hall passes?
Yeah, that's what Travis brought up earlier in the year, or earlier in the year, earlier in this meeting. That
Feels like a year.
Yeah, that is an option within Infinite Campus and something that is an option. We're not starting the year with that. It is a long-term possibility, and I believe in I don't want to speak for Josh. You can get up and speak if you'd like to. But in the conversation, the brief conversations we've had about it, I believe he just wanted to make sure that if we take that next step forward, that we're also engaging in that dialogue with teachers, and we would be. That wouldn't be something that, as a result of this, that we'd be moving to digital hall passes. I think, Josh, you just want to make sure it was on the record that you wanted to have teachers engaged in that discussion.
So a mobile hall pass being as they would go take the phone, scan out, and then have it where they shouldn't have it, which is in the bathroom, and then come
Right, I
back.
mean, but we're not there yet, right?
Okay.
Right, Katie, it's
But I'm looking at, like, that's where we're going with it, right?
But no, we're not even there yet. We're just saying that is a possibility. And we have had no dialogue with anybody about, are we going to do that? How are we going to do it? We have just acknowledged that it is a possibility within the system.
Okay.
There are some teachers, once again, there are some teachers that would much prefer to scan the device and they know they're out and you don't have to write a pass and you don't have to do it. And there's going to be some that are like, no, I don't want them wandering the hallways with their phones, right? Or going to the bathroom with their phones.
I want to reinforce, though, they don't have to have their phone in order to do that.
They just have to scan.
Because it's a digital hall pass, it means that it's in the virtual world, if you will, that the pass is there. They use their physical ID, scan out, they are then on pass, right?
Yeah.
And anyone that's in the hallway can check by scanning their ID to see if they are on a pass or not, right?
But
So
we're getting really far afield.
I know,
here,
I know,
right?
I know, but
This-
it's,
But it is.
there's
that-
all these things that are great that we know we can be using, but then using it in the most sensible way.
And like I said, we're not even into that. Josh is just reserving space to be part of that conversation, which the teachers would be, of course, as part of that.
So Josh, since you're in the room, is there anything that you would want to add as far as clarification?
Sorry, Josh.
As to what direction you feel we should go, or the teachers want us to go? I mean, is there any input? You represent the teachers. What is your input on this matter so that we make the best decision possible here?
In full transparency, I'm concerned about the consistency piece. I do, at the end of the day, as a practitioner myself, maybe you can respect this. I don't think it's my place to tell other teachers how to govern their classroom. I do think if teachers do not abide by this policy to some degree or the other, Chris, like you were talking about the different, the defaults, I think we are ultimately going to nail our feet to the ground, and we're going to be working against that. One of my other concerns, truth be told, is I am concerned about the number of deans that we have. We do have a number of infractions. There are a lot of different behavioral, instances that are going on throughout the school day. Will the deans be able to keep up with that? That is something that I'm seeing a day in, day out. That is a concern of mine.
Okay. Any other questions? This will be an action item later on in the meeting.
All right, moving on, we'll get into some, I guess, less exciting items. Commercial insurance renewals, Jury?
Yeah, how much?
Depends who your audience is.
Oh, sorry, skip past it.
Well, good evening. So every time, at this time every year, we bring you our commercial insurance renewals, the quotes that we've received from our insurance broker, who goes out to the market. This year, he went out and talked to 10 different carriers. Some of those carriers declined to quote. Some did quote. All were higher than the current ones that we have. As I made note in the memo, we have a few of our coverages that are running pretty high, and then others that are running right about at what the market has out for other school districts. We combine policies with District 58 for property, general liability, commercial auto, our E&O, crime, umbrella, excess umbrella, workman's comp. The others we have all on our own as separate policies. By combining with 58, we've been able to keep our premium costs down. I guess the only ones that you might want to have some questions on would be our catastrophic accident. That's required by IHSA. And then we have our foreign travel liability. That is for our students who travel abroad, whether it's spring break or during the summer. And then our foundation, we pick up the policy for the foundation. And then our pollution coverage is just once every 3 years we renew it. And it's because of our science labs, we're required to have it. Do you have any questions on any of the policies or the premium rates? Or we have our auditors take a look at the amount of coverage that we have for each of these policies, so it's all standard.
Any questions for Drew?
Any questions? Okay.
All right. The next one is also an action item tonight, and is under jury.
Now, this one's much more exciting. The other was boring. So we are excited to bring this to the board. The business office and HR teams have been looking at various software packages for the past few months. The current one that we have,
our tech department has suggested that we make the change. They feel that e-finance probably will not be supported in the future. Very few school districts in Illinois use it. I think maybe 4, possibly. And so after we've spent the last few months looking at the various packages that are out there, we've spoken to other school districts to see which ones they recommend. Tonight, we're recommending that we make this change into Tyler Technology over the next year. The cost, the overall cost at the beginning is you know, there is an additional cost, just like there was with Infinite Campus. But then after we have that first year initial cost, we're going to have a pretty good size savings. Jeff, would you like to add anything?
Just that this has definitely been a very collaborative effort between the business and HR offices to try and find the right product that we think not only will meet the level of service for everything that we're doing currently, but quite frankly has the potential to exceed it by a great deal. Just the integration of these systems coming together under one umbrella really will be beneficial for a lot of things in terms of our efficiency, our ability to provide information to our staff, get information that we need to do the reporting and things we need to do. Auditing should be smoother. Lots of advantages to doing this, I think.
Right, because currently we have the 4. We have our e-finance, Time Clock Plus, which isn't really communicating with e-finance. Our Frontline, which is absence reporting, which has some type of interface, but not that strong of an interface. And then Yellow Folder, which is what HR uses for file management.
Yep.
Which is, there is no integration.
Not at all.
With that file management software. So this would be under one house. Everything would just be located within that system.
And is the absence reporting, that's like the staff, right? So is that
Correct.
integrated? Because didn't we talk about that with attendance, that the one piece is student and then one piece is staff?
And this
that
is like
helping
the
to
tracking
integrate?
reporting, yeah. So
But
it's-
this is like the staff side of it,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
Mhm. Okay.
All right, any other questions for Jerry? All right. I don't know, cell phones were more exciting than
Yeah.
financial software. Receipt of the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Grant. Travis, do you want to, you weren't here to celebrate this, going after this the last time. You want
Yes.
to share a little bit about the work you did?
Yeah, you bet. So, in working with Illinois State Senator Rachel Ventura, we on May 31st, we were notified that we were awarded $300,000 in the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity grant funding, specifically for energy conservation work. So in talking with her before the process and seeing, you know, what we might be able to utilize that for, which we talked about a month, 2 months ago, related to the EV charging stations, but also this allows us to expand and we can replace, it provides the additional funding needed to do our LED stadium lighting. So if you remember when we did our Fund 90 work, we had a certain amount towards that LED stadium lighting, but it didn't fully fund that project, right? So we can see those both to fruition. So we are waiting to hear from our DCEO coordinator. A grant specialist will be assigned to us to work through all the logistics. And we are awaiting also on the other side of things. I've been in a similar vein working with State Representative Stava Murray on a $500,000 grant that would, again, for energy conservation, that we've talked about doing the solar work, both here and at T99, which would make each building self-sufficient and basically off the grid, so that we wouldn't have those delivery costs that are so high that we can control that as well. So we're waiting to hear on that. We're not moving forward with those projects until we know for sure that we have that. This is different. We know that we have this funding, so we've decided to to move forward with it, so.
I was curious, since the budget was like decided on and approved, like, why don't you know that other bucket of money?
So because
from somewhere
it did
else?
come from the state budget.
Yeah.
It is with the member initiative capital project funding.
Okay.
So it is slightly different, but it is still through DCEO.
Okay.
So but
They're on a different
again,
schedule?
Seeing that we have other funding tied to in the projects, especially like with the driver's ed cars and those different things, we know we got a letter, like an official letter. We didn't get anything
Yeah.
from that other than me inquiring and saying where, kind of
Yeah.
where are we at in the process. And it was basically, they're kind of kept in the dark. We need to wait until we hear from a DCEO grant specialist from them. So, but we're ready to, go down that path as soon as we're notified. That work really can happen at any point in time. It's not we have to do it in the summer. So we're excited about those two opportunities.
So this is my first time with this,
Yeah.
so the release of the funds being 1 to 3 years, could you maybe talk to, is it a guarantee?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a guarantee that we'll get the funds. It's just not a known as to when.
The timeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would expect it to be in this fiscal year, though. That's when it typically is allocated. It would be atypical to come in years 2 or 3.
Okay.
You're saying that if we get the second round of funding, we may go solar at D99, is that what you're saying?
So at the ASC building and at T99.
And at T99?
So those.
But to go off the grid for our buildings would be a major project.
Well, we've already done the studies at the buildings, and our roofs structurally cannot handle those at our main campuses. So that would be a whole nother thing when we go through and do roof replacements, right? So that's when we would entertain that and talk about. I've done some feasibility studies for like a carport structure, potentially to go around the perimeter of our parking lots and looking at that. That's an option, but because we don't have any green space, right? So it's either roofs or something like that. So we're continuing to look for other ways, again, to get that delivery cost down. We can get the actual supply cost at a reasonable rate because we can shop that, but the delivery, it is up to ComEd as to where they set that. So we're trying to remove that variable. So at least we would have that for these 2 buildings, and our return on investment for that is 5 to 6 years. And then we're getting everything right along those lines.
Plus we're getting some support for the project itself.
Correct.
To get it off the ground.
Correct. So our payback is immediate.
Yeah.
Right? And then we have those savings. And actually it creates somewhat of a revenue stream because there's the initial ComEd rebate incentives that you can have, but then there's an annual for about 7 years where we not only get the energy savings, there are other incentives through the state and federal government that go through, and we would get that revenue each year as well.
As long as those incentives remain in place.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep. Right. As long as they remain in place.
We're not relying on those, that's a bonus for us.
It's a bonus. Yep. Exactly.
I'd like to just publicly recognize Travis for his hard work and efforts in this. This is a brand-new revenue stream for us, and not grants that we've been previously awarded in this way, at least recently. So it was good work on his part and opened up great opportunities for us. So thank you, Travis.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
All right. Now on to the more exciting copy paper bid.
Bid opening. So last week we had both the copy paper bid and bulk purchasing for our custodial supply. We had those bid openings. With the copy paper, I will tell you that in total, when we look at the sheets and the amount there for our low bidder, it's less than 1 cent per sheet, right? So when you look at the total number of pages that we're getting through that, and we've gone through this process, that is not to say that we're not going to get any other copy paper throughout the year, right? But that's our best guesstimate that's going to keep us going throughout the year. But again, we don't know exactly what that looks like, but that is a large, for sure, chunk of our copy paper. And again, that keeps us under the state statute of the percentage that needs to be recycled And so we'll continue to go down that line. And again, the bid tab results are on our website, but the low bidder for that we've checked in with is Garvey's Office Products in an amount just under $51,000.
Every year I hold my breath for Dunder Mifflin.
You have to be that big.
Keep holding your breath.
Writing up paper.
I just like that it was in Illinois, because I saw that,
Yep.
like, New Jersey to.
Yep, so there's some different, yeah, there's lots of different things out there.
Travis, does this number go down every year?
It's hard to tell when because we don't order
It
the
is,
same
Travis, it
quantity.
is.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry?
it's down.
It's down.
Yeah, I'm just
I
wondering.
actually have the
Piece
historical
of
numbers
paper,
if you
yeah.
want them. Yeah.
Per unit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious,
The cost
yeah.
and the amount that we're purchasing has
Right.
dropped year over
Because
year.
my practice, we've gone completely paperless. We don't buy copy paper at all. And so I'm curious to see, of course, that's not feasible for the district, but I'm curious to see if we're using less and less paper every year.
Yeah.
We definitely are. I have I didn't update it this year, but I do have a longitudinal number I can pull for you.
Interesting.
I'll get it to you in a report.
All right, thanks.
And
would
on the
assume,
flip
right-
side, right, you have the paper, we also have the copiers.
Right.
So we did a whole initiative this year just informing people, hey, do you know, and we changed our actual structure when you send a print job. Whereas if it's gonna be color, you have to send a separate print job. You have to select that because it's about 7 times more per color copy than it is for a black and white copy, right? So we talked about that at the beginning of the year to drive that down, and we have seen our numbers drop with those changes as well.
Really, that tracking of the print jobs in the workplace too is like, it's genius, because
Yes.
it really, I mean, I used to, and then you just think you know every time, and then you completely move away from. Even just the years I've been in the district with my kids, just teachers that used to send paper, like, I hardly see any of it, so I assume we're like encouraging that, yeah. It's great.
And there still are times where paper is the best tool.
Yep.
So. I know I said it.
Color paper?
In the minutes.
Put that in the minutes.
Oh, printing.
Even in color.
And then our next is our custodial supplies. So again, we looked at a different process this year. We'll monitor and see what that looks like, but we looked at our large custodial supply things such as hand soap, trash bags, our toilet paper, hand towels, those types of things, in looking at that. So we did take those individually. In looking at, we had 6 bidders for this. There is an update to the initial memo that I provided to you. In reviewing our numbers, we corrected some things there. So we have 2 that we're looking at awarding the bids for. One is with North American, and that's just under $49,000. And the other is with Unipac Corp, which is just over $20,000. And that will provide us with those supplies, which we believe, again, will be for the entirety of the year. And then the other supplies that we purchase, honestly, and just having conversations, sometimes we would bulk do such things as more of our cleaning supplies and different things. Those have a shelf life, as well as there's new products that come out. And this provides us with some flexibility to try some different things that we might see some cost savings. So we're going to try this approach where we look for that bigger bulk for this type of a bid and then adjust throughout the year. We have gotten better at using cooperative purchasing agreements this past year, and we'll continue to look at doing that where those have already gone out to bid, and we can realize some of those because we're a member of those co-ops. So we'll continue to monitor that to make sure we're going about our bidding in the best way that's meeting our needs.
All right, this is an action item this evening. Any other questions on custodial supplies for Travis?
I have an unrelated question for Travis. Is it okay to ask that now?
We can only talk about stuff that's on the agenda, so you could catch him afterwards if you want.
Okay. Remind me to talk to you about updates on scoreboard revenue stream
Got it. I can get you a memo on
in
that.
progress.
We've got some in the committed.
All right, we're moving on to things on the agenda. Freedom of information requests, we have received them, we fill them, they're available on our district website. You can either search for FOIAs or go to that link.
Okay, to the consent agenda. Before the board votes on the consent agenda, is there any agenda item a board member would like to pull out of the consent agenda for further discussion?
That's a consent.
Okay, hearing none. Can I get a motion from the Board of Education to approve the consent agenda
Yeah,
as
right.
presented, which includes A, personnel report, appointment to administration, appointment certified, contract adjustment certified, one-time stipend exempt. B, personnel report, retirement administration, retirement classified, resignation classified, honorable dismissal classified. C, resolution providing for the reduction of educational support staff. D, May financial pages. E, commercial insurance renewals. F, treasurer's surety bonds for 2025, 2026. G, PMA resolution authorizing or reauthorizing participation in the fund. H, resolution of nomination for membership on the Downers Grove Plan Commission. I, student trip. J, acceptance of donation, District 99 Education Foundation. And K, acceptance of donation in memory of Bob Breyer.
So moved.
Second.
Chris moves, Kara seconds.
Thank you. Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
Katie Courtney.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
April Finan.
Aye.
Michael Riskey.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Oh, you changed.
Aye, motion carries.
Change.
Okay, now moving on to our action items. The first action item we have is a motion for the Board of Education to approve the change to the student parent handbook, including discipline code, and reapprove the athletic activities handbook. Can I get a motion from the Board of Education for said motion?
So moved.
Second.
Kara moves and Mike seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, okay?
Thank you. Kara Caston.
Aye.
Michael Riskey.
Aye.
Katie Courtney.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
April Finan.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries. Item B, can I get a motion for the Board of Education to approve migrating to school ERP as the district's new financial and human resource system beginning in the 2025-2026 school year, with full conversion to be completed in the 2026-2027 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Mike moves, Chris seconds.
Thank you. Michael Riskey.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
April Finan.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
Katie Courtney.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Item C, can I get a motion from the Board of Education to award the bid for copy paper to Garvey's Office Products located in Niles, Illinois, in the amount of $50,958.89?
So moved.
Second.
Chris moves, Kara seconds.
Thank you. Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
Katie Courtney.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
April Finan.
Aye.
Michael Riskey.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries. And then finally, can I get a motion from the Board of Education to award bids for custodial supplies to the noted vendors in the aggregate amount of $69,033.50?
So moved. Oh.
April moves,
Oh,
Second.
and Kara seconds.
Talking over everyone.
Thank you. April Finan.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
Katie Courtney.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
Michael Riskey.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, any old business, Hank?
No,
Did we skip over? You
we have no
something?
old or new business.
Okay, you're just skipping ahead.
I'm getting ahead.
All right. Julie, second reception of visitors? Do we
No,
have
sir.
comments? Okay. Item 12, communications. Kara, do we have any report from Len?
We do have a Lent report. So the General Assembly adjourned on June 1st, and the budget passed both chambers, no need for a 3/5 vote. There were a number of budget bills, 17 total areas, 15, the amount was increased, 3, the amount was decreased, and 9 kind of held flat. The budget implementation bill, that's the one thing I wanted to highlight there was they appropriated $75 million for the Tier 2 pension fix. And this allows for money to be allocated to ensure funds are available for the safe harbor fix. So that's if the pension benefits fall below the minimum required, they would be subject to Social Security tax, and that's preventing that from happening.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
We'll see.
Is that right? It says it's been allocated, okay. So, and then the only other one I wanted to highlight was bills of interest was dual credit, which was talked about, and that was something that Lend really was part of the language. We wanted to thank Representatives Costa Howard and Blair Sherlock for getting it across the line. And there's a lot of detail that I can send if people have questions, but basically it ensures high-quality dual credit and continues to expand opportunities for students equitably and consistently throughout the state. Number of provisions to do that if you're interested. We talked about how the cell phone ban did not come up and did not pass. And those were the highlights. I think that Hank forwarded the summary. That was, unless you had anything that I missed.
Just that we were, as a district, super active in the dual credit work. I led the Lend committee that was responsible for it. I then served on the committee that negotiated under Senator Castro's office. That's who led it in the Senate. And Gina served on that committee as well. So really, it was Lend and then the committee I led that led that for the state. So DuPage was really front-facing in that. Our district was very front-facing in that. I was very front-facing in that. So it has been something we've been working on for multiple years. We were involved in the first Dual Credit Act that had some assumptions that we believed that people would follow, that they have proven not to, that we believe that this corrects. So we look forward to this going into place and then getting to work with College of DuPage on next steps.
Okay. Chris, do you have anything to report on SASN?
Yeah, we had a meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago. They presented us with the budget, and then their sort of plans for the fiscal year. Their big focus on, they mentioned something, I can't remember what it was, but the budget, it was presented to us, and then we'll be voting on it August 6th, something, early August. It's got like a 60-day window between when they present the budget and then when it's approved. Yeah, there's, I have, SASD sends out like a newsletter. It's pretty informative. If any of you want access to it, I can send it over, or I'm sure Julie can as well. But yeah, the executive director, Kim Dreyer, does a really great job at presenting through all of the goals that they have for the year and going through the budget line by line. It's a longer meeting, but it's nice. They do a really good job. So.
Big focus on facilities over the
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it was. Their facility that they're at, the building that they're at right now is their lease is up next year? Or?
They just renewed it for
yes,
like a minimum of 2 years
2
while
years.
they figure out the next steps.
Yeah, they're looking for potentially more space because they need more space. So that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. April, Katie, have you had any board meetings with the foundation as of yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then I'll just-
we have something scheduled for.
Okay. Next board
Bye.
meeting, we'll get an update from you. And then, Ken, do you have anything to update on IASB?
No.
No? Okay. All right, upcoming board meetings. The next board meeting will be July 28th, 2025, here at the ASC at 6:30 PM for our monthly business meeting. Okay, item 14. Can I get a motion from the Board of Education to go into closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body, or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act.
So moved.
Second.
Chris moves, Ken seconds.
Thank you. Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
April Finan.
Aye.
Michael Riskey.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
Katie Courtney.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye. Motion carries. We will be going to closed session shortly. Just for the public, the board may be taking action on a personnel matter as noted in the agenda when it comes out of closed session. Let's take a quick break and then we'll start our closed session.
Thank you.